Hey there, all you beautiful souls. I hope your day has been absolutely fantastic. It's a pleasure to have you back for yet another exciting episode of What If Naruto Was Sent to the Fairy Tale Universe. Don't forget to pay a visit to the author of this captivating fanfiction and show them some love. You'll find the link waiting for you down in the description. If this what if is sparking your curiosity, drop a comment down below and share your thoughts. And while you're at it, don't miss out on exploring the plethora of other intriguing what ifs available on this very channel. Alright, let's not keep you waiting any longer, let's dive right into this thought-provoking video. Zankro was dropped roughly to the floor as Naruto entered his private camp. Everything was fairly unruffled even with all the going-ons of the island. The retreat was rather well hidden as neither he nor Mirajane wished to have any of the native animals stumble across them in their sleep. Their travel gear was nestled snugly beneath the hammock they had strung up between two trees. Diving straight into the packs, Naruto pulled out his sealing scroll and quickly swapped into his battle gear. His usual orange and black outfit was the most comfortable to fight in, and just the feeling of the clothes started amping him up. Pulling out his forehead protector, he tied it proudly in place. Lastly, he retrieved his 10 Saints badge and pinned it above his heart, the little thing glinting brightly in the light. Feeling as ready as ever to finally finish this, he closed his eyes and slipped into Senjutsu, sage techniques. Right, where are you, Mirajane? I'm coming for you. The world sharpened. The rustle of leaves became a roar, the distant crackle of magic flaring like bonfires in his mind's eye. Tenra's energy pulsed around him like a living entity. But something was different. The Ether Nano. It had begun to coil around Fairy Tale's signatures, swirling protectively like a mother's embrace, helping identify the induvial mages from those of the invading Grimwar heart. Lucy's golden light flickered to the east. Gray's icy aura spiked northward. Natsu's flaring brightly to the west. Naruto wasn't exempt from this phenomenon either. He watched curiously as it seemed to twist and move around and through him, almost gently coaxing him to interact with it. Frowning curiously, Naruto cautiously reached out and watched as the energy danced between his fingers. Chuckling, he lifted his hand and watched the Ether Nano follow his movements excitedly too. Rage burned through Naruto's eyes as the clone's memory suddenly exploded into his mind. Wendy's small frame hunched over Mirajane, her healing magic a fragile glow against Mirajane's thankfully now smooth face, the rest of her wounds stitching themselves together at an unnatural rapid rate. The man called Mest stood guard awkwardly, his eyes flicking between the clone, Wendy, Charla and Naruto's clone Blink Panther Lily. Since when was the Exceed here? The black cat's wings flared as he held up his fists, growling at Mest dangerously. Clearly he'd worked out something was amiss with the mage. As Wendy was working though. Boom. An explosion ripped through the small clearing, leveling trees and throwing everyone away. Wendy and Mira had somehow been relocated instantly to safety by Mest, while his clone and Lily glared into the smoke as a figure faded into view. Azuma. The Grimwar Heart Mage smirked, roots erupting from the earth as he flexed his fingers. Well then, good to see you again, Naruto, he sneered. Lily lunged, blade clashing against bark, while the clone hurled a Rasengan. Boom. Another explosion. Fire. Debris. Then nothing. Naruto's eyes snapped open, his breath ragged. Rage coiled in his gut, hot and acidic. Azuma. The name alone made his fists tremble. That bastard had already stood in his way once. Now that he would dare to touch his friends, he was going to pay dearly. He moved before he could think. In a blur of orange, he hauled Zankro over his shoulder, the dark mage's head lolling like a broken doll, and shot into the trees. The forest blurred around him, Senjutsu guiding his path as he followed the clone's fading coordinates. Above, the canopy shuddered. Arcs of foreign magic lighting the sky up, battles with Grimwar Heart's mages no doubt. The natural energy surged beneath his feet, propelling him faster. The Ether Nano clung to him now, amplifying his speed, as if the island itself were howling, hurry, hurry, hurry. The roaring line of scorched earth blazed behind Naruto as he rocketed through the trees, shooting past mages and battles so fast that the people didn't even have a chance to register the movement before they were blasted by the shockwave of wind that followed the teen. The world around Naruto seemed to stretch the faster he moved, his mind locked onto exactly where he needed to be. Blasting into the clearing, time slowed down as Naruto rapidly took in the situation. Bright lights filled the clearing, indicating multitudes of explosions that were just about to detonate. Lily was on the back foot, lips pulled back in a severe roar as he moved to dodge the charges around him. Charla was trying to cover Wendy as the young dragon slayer wrapped her arms around her head while screaming. Mest was diving at Wendy, forgoing his own safety to try and protect the girl. Finally, poor Mira was unconscious, lying right in front of an explosion that was just about to detonate. Before all of them stood Azuma, a smug grin on his face with hands outstretched. This took Naruto all of a thousandth of a second to comprehend. He then moved. XXXXXXX. Lily's golden eyes burned with rage as he glared at the infuriating Grimmer Hard Mage. Azuma stood before him, his stern expression in stark contrast to the chaos around them. The Exceed's claws flexed, his muscles coiled like springs, but his frustration simmered just beneath the surface. If only I had my sword, he lamented silently. While he was a force to be reckoned with in hand-to-hand combat, Lily felt significantly more confident with his trusted blade in hand, especially against a mage of Azuma's caliber. The two had exchanged blows, with Lily landing a few solid hits, but Azuma had shrugged them off with unsettling ease. The Dark Mage's skill was undeniable, and Lily couldn't help but grudgingly respect it. Still, he refused to back down. After another brief exchange, Lily tried to dance back to create some distance. Unfortunately, to that Azuma only smirked. The air around the Exceed shimmered, a fiery glow igniting in an instant. Before Lily could react, the space erupted in a deafening explosion, the force hurling him backward. He hit the ground with a grunt, his ears ringing as pain radiated through his body. Was it Azuma, a close-range fighter like himself? Where did this ranged attack come from? Damn it! Lily snarled, rolling to his feet. He lunged forward, determined to close the gap, but Azuma's eyes flicked past him, narrowing with mild annoyance. Pests, Azuma muttered, his voice dripping with disdain. Wait your turn. Lily's heart sank as he realized Wendy and Mest must have been planning something. He tried to leap back to cover them, but his body moved too slowly, weighed down by exhaustion and the lingering effects of the explosion. The air around him began to glow ominously once more, and Wendy's terrified scream pierced the chaos. Azuma's victorious smile filled Lily's vision, and an unbidden roar of frustration tore from his throat. Then, all hell broke loose. The blur of orange and blonde shot past Lily, moving faster than his eyes could track. Azuma vanished as a force like a meteor strike connected with him, sending him rocketing toward the giant tree at the heart of the island. The impact echoed like a thunderclap, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Before Lily could process what had happened, something or someone grabbed him and hurled him into the air, as if he weighed as much as a newborn kitten. Wendy, Mest, and Charla followed, their shrill screams blending into the cacophony. Lily's wings instinctively sprouted from his back, but his mind was racing. Below, and not a moment too soon, the ground erupted in a massive explosion, a fireball engulfing the area they just occupied. The shockwave rattled his bones, and for a moment, all he could do was stare in stunned silence. Then, a cold dread settled in his gut. Mirajane, he shouted, his voice cracking with panic. She's here safely. It's okay. Lily twisted in the air, his wings catching the breeze as he turned toward the voice. Naruto floated among them, his expression a mix of relief and simmering anger. Charla held Wendy aloft, the young dragon slayer clinging to her with wide eyes. A duplicate of Naruto gripped Mest by the collar, the man dangling like a ragdoll. But it was the sight of Mirajane that made Lily's breath hitch. Naruto cradled her gently in his arms, her unconscious form resting against his chest. Her silver hair fanned out like a halo, her face pale but peaceful. Lily let out a shaky breath he hadn't realized he was holding, his shoulders sagging in relief. Naruto, Lily said, his voice steadier now. The original, I assume. You couldn't have gotten here just a little faster. That was cutting it too close for comfort. Naruto snorted, his trademark grin flickering for a moment as he began descending to the ground, the group in tow. I didn't know about the attack until my clone popped. I got here as fast as I could. His gaze shifted to Wendy and Charla, his expression softening. Are you two okay? Wendy nodded, lips quivering, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Charla, meanwhile, let out a shaky breath, her fur bristling. You could have been a bit more gentle throwing us into the air like that, she stammered, her voice trembling. I have half a mind to chew your ear off about it, if you hadn't just saved us. That drew a chuckle from Naruto. Sure thing, Snaggletooth. I'll keep that in mind for next time. Charla squawked indignantly, but her protests were cut short as the group touched down on the ground. Can you let me go now? Mest snapped, struggling against the clone's grip. You have no right to hold on to me like this. We're back on the floor. What's the... In a flash, Mest was swung into the air over Naruto's head and slammed back first into the ground with bone-rattling force. The air rushed from his lungs in a pained gasp, but before he could recover, Naruto's hand closed around his throat, pinning him in place. The blonde's other hand hovered above Mest's chest, fingers extended like claws, ready to strike. Naruto gave him a quick look over, familiarizing himself with the fake fairy tale mage. He was a lean man with short, almost shaved black hair and mildly long sideburns. His shocked turquoise eyes glared up at Naruto, clearly not expecting this treatment. Curiously, the left side of his face sported 3 distinctive scars. The shortest one pointed diagonally upwards in his left eye's direction, which was connected by the longest scar, diagonally in the other way. That was similarly oriented with the last one that tracked up to his forehead. You best start explaining who the hell you are and what you're doing with the guild, Naruto growled, his voice low and dangerous. The only reason you're still in one piece is because I saw you trying to save Wendy. Before Mest could even begin to think of an answer, to everyone's surprise, Wendy jumped onto Naruto's back, arms wrapped around his neck in a hug, as she buried her head into the teen's shoulder. Don't hurt Mest, she cried out, body still shaking from the last hectic minute of action. Mest isn't a bad guy. He tried to save me, even if he might have lied about being a fairy tale mage. Looking at the mop of blue on his shoulder, Naruto turned his eyes to Mest and narrowed them. His posture relaxed though, and he lowered his poised arm. Who are you then? What are you doing? Mest swallowed thickly, his hands raised in a gesture of surrender. I'm with the council, he forced out, his voice strained. I was sent here to investigate Fairy Tail on their behalf. But then I discovered Seraph is here too. I was planning to report back to the council when Grimwarheart attacked. He growled softly, frustration etching his features. They ruined everything with this raid. That last guy even blew up the council's fleet. You can see it from here. Naruto followed Mest's pointed finger, his gaze landing on the distant horizon. The burning remains of the council's fleet smoldered in the ocean, their charred hulls barely visible through the smoke. Crew members flailed in the water, their distant cries carried on the wind. Naruto hummed dangerously, his expression darkening as he pushed off Mest and turned to help Wendy to her feet. I don't trust you, he said bluntly. However, I'll take Wendy's word for it. The Naruto clone that had been holding Mest exploded into a puff of smoke, leaving only the original, who still cradled Mirajane gently in his arms. For now though, Wendy-chan, Naruto said, his tone softening as the young dragon slayer turned to face him. If you have the strength, can you keep working on Mirajane, please? Wendy squeaked, her eyes widening as she remembered the extent of Mirajane's injuries. She dashed over, kneeling beside the unconscious woman, as Naruto carefully laid her on the ground. Naruto. That's quite enough. Wendy really should be. Charla's protests were cut off as Naruto shot her a warning glare. I usually ignore your insults and complaints because we're part of the same team, he said, his voice calm but laced with steel. However, not this time. Mirajane needs to be healed, and you will not interfere. Understood. The small white cat froze, her fur bristling as the weight of Naruto's intent washed over her. Her eyes wavered and she swallowed hard, the reality of her powerlessness sinking in. Wendy, sensing the tension, spoke up quickly. It's okay, Charla. I still have enough magic left. I can heal her. She spared Naruto a nervous glance before turning her attention back to Mirajane, her hands glowing with healing energy. The heavy sound of footsteps drew their attention as Lily approached, his large hand coming to rest on Naruto's shoulder. The Exceed's deep voice broke the tension, skillfully shifting the subject. In any case, it's a relief to have you here. I wasn't sure what would have become of us if you hadn't intervened. A small smile cracked Naruto's stern expression as he watched Wendy work. What, and leave you lot to have all the fun. You clearly don't know me very well. He glanced up at the towering Exceed. So, when did you get here? How did you even join the guild? I swear I should have known about this. Lily chuckled deeply, shaking his head in amusement. You have Gadgiel to thank for that. I was pulled through the anime, as you saw, but when I arrived in this dimension, Gadgiel decided he needed his own Exceed to complete the trio as he put it. I believe it was in reference to Natsu having Happy and Wendy having Charla. Naruto snorted. That sounds just like him. Can't let himself be outdone by anyone. Lily nodded, his gaze shifting to Mest, who was cautiously making his way over. It does, doesn't it? I still have a lot to learn about him for our partnership to really shine, but we have time. This fellow, though, he motioned to Mest, who stopped a few paces away, should probably explain what he knows about this situation. He was about to tell me more before Azuma showed up. All eyes turned to Mest, who began chewing his lip nervously, muttering to himself in a looping tick before finally pulling himself together. The council. He began hesitantly. They haven't been happy with Fairy Tail's track record. Your guild is a thorn in their side. I was sent to see if there was any way to have it disbanded. A unified gasp rippled through the group. Wendy was the first to speak, her voice trembling. You can't be. Mest, surely you wouldn't. In a very gentle, almost fondly tender motion, the mage smiled softly and knelt beside Wendy to put his hand on her head. No, not anymore. He looked up at the others. You have proven to be upright individuals. In the face of Grimwarheart as well, I can't think of anything more detrimental than trying to take away the unity this skill displays. He straightened, his gaze locking with Naruto's, a serious glint replacing the tenderness. You, though. Azuma was toying with us like we were nothing. We couldn't so much as scratch him with our attacks, yet you came out of nowhere and decimated him in a single strike. I know you were recently given the title of Saint Tier Mage, but that doesn't seem to do you justice. Naruto shrugged, crossing his arms dismissively. Saint Tier on paper. I just wanted the rank to rub in the other mages' faces. Mest frowned, his mind racing. With you here, there's every chance we might actually win this. He began chewing his finger again, the intensity increasing until he winced in pain. If you don't mind me asking, he ventured cautiously, what rank would you believe yourself to be? Naruto raised an eyebrow, caught off guard by the question. Dunno. Why does it matter? Well, you see, Mest explained, I fully expected we were about to die. Azuma's power was beyond anything I expected, and apparently, there are 6 others as strong as him. They be Saint Tier mages at a conservative estimate, yet you completely eclipsed him. Mest's grin widened, his excitement palpable. With you fighting this battle, I think we could actually win. You could take down a member of the Barum Alliance, but more importantly, you might even have a shot at defeating Zeref. Think of the accolades the council would offer us. Naruto's expression darkened, his patience wearing thin. Zeref this, Zeref that, who gives a damn? If the council is so fixated on this supposedly dead mage, how are you any better than these dark guilds? Mest gasped, but Naruto pressed on, his voice rising. What does it matter if Zeref is here? He hasn't raised his head in 400 years. If he's not made a peep in all that time, don't you think it's better to let sleeping dogs lie? But, Mest spluttered, his face reddening. Think of the damage he could cause if he's awakened. Grimoire Heart is trying to bring him back. Naruto shrugged. So if I wreck their guild, this Zeref problem goes away. He slammed a fist into his palm. They've got their ass kicking coming for what they've done to my family. Zeref, though. He shrugged again. He's done nothing to any of us yet, and I don't want to poke that bear. Besides, the master made me promise not to fight anything like him. Mest struggled to form words, his frustration mounting as the group nodded in agreement with Naruto. You can't just ignore this. Be reasonable. Naruto's eyes narrowed dangerously. I think you'll find I am being reasonable. I'm protecting the guild that first protected me. You trying to pressure me into fighting someone you claim is this dangerous. That's reckless. Wouldn't you agree? Mest growled, swinging an arm out in protest. That's bull crap, and you know it. If the council hears you ignored this threat. Naruto was suddenly standing before Mest, having moved so fast that no one saw it coming. He leaned in close, his voice a low, menacing growl. If the council hears what? Fear blanketed Mest's face as a suffocating killing intent pressed down on him. The council doesn't need to hear anything about this, Naruto said, his tone icy. Either you can be a good little council dog and conveniently forget this, or I'll make you forget. Your choice. The pressure bearing down on Mest buckled his knees, but his lug muscles held him upright as sweat poured down his face. Maybe. They don't need to hear, he stammered. Naruto's eyes narrowed. Good decision. The pressure lifted instantly, and Mest collapsed to the ground, gasping for air. Naruto turned away without another word, returning to Wendy's side as the council mage struggled to compose himself. Kneeling beside Mirajane's head, Naruto could feel the weight of Lily's calculating gaze on the back of his neck. Wendy kept shooting him sidelong glances, her expression a mix of nervousness and concern, while Charla's disapproving glare burned into him like a laser. The tension in the clearing was palpable, however Naruto ignored it, his focus solely on Mirajane. His fingers gently stroked her silver hair, the motion soothing and rhythmic, offering his soft touches comfort through the healing. The awkward silence stretched on, broken only by the distant echoes of mages dueling. Shouts, explosions and the occasional tremor shaking the ground beneath them. Naruto eventually decided to break the tension, nudging Wendy with his shoulder. Wendy, he said softly, his voice carrying a warmth that contrasted sharply with the chaos around them. I really can't thank you enough for this. I was so worried about her after she got hurt. Wendy blushed slightly, a small smile tugging at her lips. Don't mention it, Naruto. Mirajane is part of the guild. Of course, I'll be here to help her. Same as anyone would. She yawned, the fatigue of healing Mirajane evident in the droop of her shoulders and the shadows under her eyes. Mira should be just about healed at this point, though she will need to rest before she's 100%. She said, her voice tinged with exhaustion. I think I might need to lie down for a bit as well, if that's okay. Naruto pulled her into a one-armed hug, his gratitude shining through his gentle smile. Yeah, of course. I know you said not to mention it, but I'm going to anyway. Thank you so much, Wendy. The young dragon slayer giggled softly, her cheeks pink as she slowly extracted herself from his embrace. She crawled over to Charla, who immediately began fussing over her, smoothing her hair and muttering about overexertion. The white exceed shot Naruto a deathly glare but said nothing, her attention firmly on her drowsy charge. As the clearing fell into silence once more, the distant sounds of battle grew clear, reminding them the fight was far from over. Lily cleared his throat, breaking the quiet as he leaned against a nearby tree, his arms crossed. You certainly know how to swap personas, don't you, Naruto? The Exceed asked, his tone a mix of amusement and curiosity. Naruto looked up from Mirajane, his eyebrow quirking as he shrugged. My precious people are something I never take for granted, he said, his voice steady but laced with intensity. I don't care who it is, and I don't care what the threat is. I'll defend my family to the death if that's what it takes. Lily studied him for a moment, his golden eyes narrowing thoughtfully. You're an interesting one, I'll give you that, he said finally. Most people talk about protecting their family, but you live it. It's not just words for you, is it? Naruto's gaze softened as he looked back down at Mirajane, his fingers still gently carding through her hair. No, he said quietly. It's not just words. My precious people are everything to me. I've lost too much in my life to let anything happen to them now. The weight of his words hung in the air, heavy and unspoken. Wendy, half asleep against Charla, murmured something unintelligible, her exhaustion finally claiming her. Charla sighed, her earlier irritation fading as she adjusted the girl's position to make her more comfortable. Lily nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful. I can respect that, he said. Gejil said you were a force to be reckoned with, but I think he undersold you. Naruto chuckled softly, the sound warm despite the tension. Gejil's got a big mouth, he doesn't need to say all that. All you need to know is I'll do whatever it takes to keep this guild safe, whether it's taking down dark mages or dealing with overzealous council lackeys. His gaze flicked to Mest, who was still sitting on the ground, his face pale and his hands trembling. The council mage avoided eye contact, clearly still shaken by Naruto's earlier display. The distant roar of an explosion shook the ground, pulling everyone's attention back to the battle raging across the island. Naruto's expression hardened, his earlier warmth replaced by a steely resolve. That explosion sounded particularly loud. Naruto immediately turned his attention to the stern girl at his knees, his hand tightening around hers as he continued to stroke her hair. Hey, Mirajane, he said softly, his voice a soothing balm against the chaos around them. Everything's okay. I'm here. Mirajane's eyes fluttered open, unfocused and disoriented as she took in the world around her. Naruto, she murmured, her voice weak but hopeful. Is that you? The wide smile of relief broke across Naruto's face, his heart swelling at the sound of her voice. Yes, it's me, he said, his tone gentle but firm. I'm right here. Suddenly, the memories came flooding back. Mirajane's eyes snapped open and she sat bolt upright, her hands reaching out to feel Naruto all over his face, shoulders and chest, as if to confirm he was real. You're here, she exclaimed, her voice trembling with relief. Oh, thank heavens. After that woman stole you away, I tried to catch up to you, but... Her brow furrowed as she tried to piece together the fragmented memories. What happened with you? How did you escape? The uncomfortable memory of the kiss immediately rushed to the forefront of Naruto's mind, and he grimaced awkwardly, his cheeks tinged with a faint blush. Ultear. When I came to, I was tied up around a tree. We just talked for a bit before she left. Off to find Zeref, like everyone here seems to be obsessed with. She just left you there? Mirajane asked, her voice laced with confusion. Why? I thought she wanted to hurt you. Naruto scratched the back of his head, his expression a mix of bewilderment and discomfort. I think she likes me, he said hesitantly, as if the words themselves were absurd. She kept saying stuff like, next time will be different, and we can try a different relationship, and then went on about her family and... I don't know, it was all really weird. Mirajane's face darkened, her silver eyes narrowing as a low, angry rumble built in her chest. And then, what happened? Naruto's expression shifted, his earlier awkwardness replaced by a simmering fury. Then, he said, his voice low and dangerous, Zancro showed up with you, just after Ultear left. Seeing what happened to you. What he did to you. His fists clenched, his knuckles whitening. I snapped. No one gets away with hurting you like that. How did you even lose? I honestly thought you were strong enough to take him on. Mirajane's memories were slowly coming together, though they remained hazy, like fragments of a dream. I fought Zancro. She murmured, her voice tinged with frustration. He beat me, didn't he? She shook her head, finding herself ashamed with what she remembered. I took him too lightly. I was arrogant. I think I've been off the front lines so long I underestimated him. An animalistic growl rumbled in Naruto's throat, startling everyone in the clearing. His eyes darkened, a flicker of red flashing in their depths. So that's what happened, he said, his voice low and dangerous. Don't worry about that though. I extracted my pound of flesh from him for that. How are you feeling now? Finally reassured, Mirajane sighed deeply and sank into Naruto's embrace, her body trembling with exhaustion. Tired, she admitted, her voice muffled against his shoulder. Very, very tired. I feel like I was run over by raging Natsu. Naruto chuckled, the sound warm and comforting as he gave her a gentle squeeze. Honestly, that's closer to the truth than you think. Nothing hurts, though. When he fixed everything. Mirajane nodded, her face still buried in his shoulder as she breathed in his familiar scent. After a moment, she pushed herself back slightly, her silver hair falling in disarray around her face. So, what happened to Zankro, anyway? A cold, unimpressed glint entered Naruto's eyes as he glanced toward the edge of the clearing. I fought him, he said simply. His tone was calm, but there was an edge to it that made the air feel heavier. Do you want the truth, or would you rather not know? Mirajane swallowed, her gaze flicking up to Lily who stood nearby, his golden eyes just as morbidly curious as her own. Naruto. She said slowly, her voice tinged with unease. What did you do? I nearly killed him. The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Mirajane and Lily both sucked in sharp breaths, while Charla and Mest winced at the cold, matter-of-fact tone. Naruto's expression didn't waver. I was just about to finish him when I thought you should have the final say since you're the one he hurt. I dragged what's left of him over here to face your judgment. He leaned in slightly, his gaze locking with Mirajane's, to impress upon her the meaning of his words, whatever you decide to do with him. And I do mean whatever. I'll see to it that it happens. Mirajane's eyes whitened, her mind racing as she processed his words. She glanced around the clearing, her gaze lingering on the distant flashes of magic and the faint echoes of battle. Well, I'd ask for a bit of time to think about it, she said hesitantly, but I don't think I have that luxury. Her expression then hardened, a fire igniting in her eyes as she clenched her fists. Well, Zankro attacked me. I think the person I really want to rebuke is Ultear. Naruto blinked, surprised by the venom in her voice. Mirajane was usually so gentle, so composed, however now, her anger was palpable, radiating from her like heat from a forge. She stole you away from me, Mirajane seethed, her voice trembling with rage. She knew Zankro was going to use me to hurt you, then did nothing to stop it. How dare she suggest she likes you when she could let this happen to you? She punched the ground in fury. Zankro can go back to his master in whatever state you left him. But Ultear. I want to face her personally. Naruto's eyes whitened, a flicker of concern crossing his face. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Mirajane. Don't try to talk me out of it, she said firmly, her gaze unwavering. She needs to know just how messed up her logic is. I feel the strongest of needs to discipline her for her actions. Naruto studied Mirajane for a moment, his expression softening as he took in her determined yet exhausted face. Finally, he nodded. All right, he said, his voice steady but laced with unwavering resolve. But I'll be right there with you. No matter what. Before Mirajane could protest, Naruto scooped her up into his arms, cradling her bridal style. She let out a surprised squeak, her cheeks flushing as she instinctively wrapped her arms around his neck for stability. Naruto. She exclaimed, though her tone held more amusement than annoyance. First things first, he said, his tone firm but gentle, we need to get you somewhere you can rest. You're not fighting anyone until you've recovered. Turning to the others, Naruto's gaze swept the clearing, only to realize Mest had disappeared sometime during Mirajane's awakening. His eyes narrowed briefly, but he pushed the thought aside for now. Panther Lily stood nearby, Wendy cradled in his large furry arms. The young dragon slayer was curled up against his chest, her soft snores a testament to her exhaustion. Charla floated close by, her usual sharp demeanor softened by the motherly concern etched across her face, as she hovered protectively over Wendy. We need to find the rendezvous point, Charla declared, her voice cutting through the quiet. We need to regroup with the rest of Fairy Tail and come up with a plan. Any idea where that would be? Mirajane frowned, her brow furrowing as she thought. Base camp was destroyed by Zankro, she said, her voice tinged with frustration. The fallback point from there was the beach where we first landed for the trials. We can head there and hopefully meet up with anyone else who's made it. Lily nodded, his massive wings materializing with a faint shimmer. He adjusted Wendy gently in his arms before lifting off the ground, his powerful wings beating the air with a steady rhythm. Let's head over there now, he said, his deep voice carrying a note of urgency. There's no time to waste. Naruto hummed in agreement. The clone suddenly dashed into the bushes and began dragging the unconscious body of Zankro from where Naruto had thrown him at the beginning of the rescue. His grip on Mirajane tightening slightly as he pushed chakra into his feet. With a burst of energy, he leapt into the sky, joining Lily in the air. Mirajane directed them toward the beach, her voice steady despite her fatigue. As they soared above the treetops, the island stretched out below them, a patchwork of destruction and chaos. Fires burned in the distance, their orange glow contrasting sharply with the darkening sky. The sounds of battle echoed faintly, a grim reminder that the fight was far from over. Naruto's jaw tightened as he glanced down at Mirajane, her silver hair catching the fading light. "The guild will get through this," he said quietly, his voice carrying a promise. "Together." Mirajane nodded, her expression softening as she leaned into him. "Together," she echoed, her voice barely above a whisper. XXXXXXX. Swooping down to the beach, the group spotted a makeshift tent nestled in the sand, its fabric fluttering in the ocean breeze. Several figures milled about, their movements sluggish and their expressions weary. Naruto landed lightly, his arms still cradling Mirajane, while Lily touched down beside him, Wendy nestled securely in his large furry arms. His clone immediately ran into the bushes with Zancro to hide the badly damaged mage from their view. The scene before them was a stark reminder of the toll the battles had taken. Gadgil and Evergreen lay beneath the shade of the tent, their breathing labored as they rested fitfully. Livy sat beside Gadgil, her face pale but determined as she kept watch over him. Elfman, ever the protective brother, hovered near Evergreen, his usual bravado replaced by a quiet, simmering resentment. Lysana was the first to notice their arrival. Her eyes widened and she let out a shriek of joy, dashing toward them with tears streaming down her face. Mirajane. Before Mirajane could respond, Lysana wrapped her sister in a crushing hug, her enthusiasm pulling Naruto into the embrace as well. The blonde found himself awkwardly squished against the two sisters, his face pressed into Lysana's shoulder. It was a very uncomfortable position for his neck, however he could completely understand the sheer relief and joy behind Lysana's actions, and as such endured the hug patiently. After a few moments, Lysana pulled back, her hands still gripping Mirajane's shoulders as she looked her sister over with wide tear-filled eyes. "Mira, I'm so happy you're okay," she exclaimed, her voice trembling with emotion. "What happened out there? Why is Naruto carrying you? Are you hurt? Did that horrible man do anything to you?" Mirajane chuckled softly, her voice warm despite her exhaustion. She reached up to gently touch Lysana's arm, her touch soothing. Yes, I'm okay now," she assured her. "Zancro. He did rough me up a fair bit. Thankfully, Naruto was there to save the day before anything got worse, and Wendy healed me afterward." She shot Naruto a grateful look, her silver eyes softening, as she continued to comfort her sister. "I'm just really tired now. That's all." Lysana's eyes brimmed with fresh tears, but she nodded happily, sniffling as she wiped her cheeks. "Yeah, of course. Come over and lie down. Lily, you can put Wendy here as well." She glanced at the sleeping dragon slayer, her expression shifting to concern. "I take it she's just spent from using too much magic." Charlotte, who had been hovering nearby with her arms crossed, let out an indignant huff. "Humph, everyone just takes poor Wendy for granted," she said, her voice sharp with disapproval. "Would any of you put yourselves in situations even half as reckless if you didn't know you had her there to patch you up? Honestly." Ignoring Charlotte's complaints, Wendy and Mirajane were gently placed on the sand opposite Gadgil and Evergreen. Elfman took the opportunity to slide over to greet his sister, his face turning red, as Mirajane teased him about how he was doting on Evergreen. "My dear brother," Mirajane said with a playful smirk, "I never thought I'd see the day you'd be so protective over someone. Evergreen must have really worked her magic on you." Elfman's face flushed even deeper, and he stammered, "I'm just making sure she's okay. That's what a man does." Mirajane chuckled softly, her teasing smile softening as she reached out to pat his arm. "I'm just glad you're okay too, Elfman." Meanwhile, Levi sat quietly beside Gadgil, her eyes fixed on his resting form. Her usual bubbly demeanor was subdued, replaced by a quiet, almost vacant expression. When Naruto dropped down beside her, she turned to offer him a small, tired smile. "Hey, Naruto," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. The blonde returned her smile, his tone gentle. "Hey, yourself. You doing okay?" Levi turned her eyes back to Gadgil and her lip quivered. "Not really." She then fell silent, her eyebrows beginning to tremble as well. Naruto let out a small breath, biting the inside of his lip as he considered what to say. His eyes widened as an idea came to him. "Hey, Levi," he said, his voice light but sincere, the rings worked. That caught her attention. Her eyes flicked back to him, a spark of life returning to them. "They did?" she asked, her voice tinged with curiosity. "How did it go?" Pleased that she was engaging more, Naruto happily indulged her question. "We had Gamagetta guide me on the chakra manipulation side of things. Mirajane just followed your instructions, and the rings resonated the way you expected them to. I was able to summon myself to Mirajane's position twice now. It might not be the dimension jump yet, but I really think you've done it." He pulled Levi into a warm side hug, one she readily returned. So, thank you, he said, his voice filled with genuine gratitude. Letting go, Naruto pulled his knees up to his chest and rested his cheek on them. Can I ask you a question? Levi blinked, a little surprised by the inquiry, but she nodded. Naruto chose his words carefully before speaking. I just wanted to know if you're still scared of me, he said, his tone hesitant but honest. He paused, then added, it seems like you're not, which I'm super thankful for. Levi's eyes softened, and a small smile tugged at her lips. Well, I'll admit I'm still a little nervous, she said, her voice gentle. But this big oaf here, she nudged Gadget lightly with her toes, said that if I'm scared of you, he'll just get bigger and scarier, so you won't matter as much anymore. She giggled, the sound light and melodic. It was so sweet of him, even if he was being completely serious. I don't think he appreciated me laughing at him, though. Problem is, I couldn't help it. Naruto chuckled, the sound warm and genuine. Turns out the big bad Iron Dragon Slayer's a bit of a softie, huh? Think he might have a particularly soft spot for you. Levi's cheeks darkened, and she pouted slightly. You think so? He's such a bully most of the time, but then he goes and says things like that. He makes no sense. Naruto smiled slightly, shrugging. What do I know? I only just got my first girlfriend a couple of weeks ago. But from an outside perspective, it seems like he's definitely got a special place for you. Levi's blush deepened and she looked down at Gadget, her expression softening. Maybe, she murmured, her voice barely audible. Saving Levi from further embarrassment, Naruto smoothly changed the subject. I need to let you know Ma and Pa want to meet you, by the way. Levi's eyebrows crinkled together in confusion as she tried to place the names. Who are they again? Gamagetta mentioned them when we were working together, but I'm not sure if it was a mistranslation or something lost in the exchange. I can't really work out how they fit into the picture. Are they your grandparents or something like that? Naruto chuckled and shook his head. No, they're the elders, honored elders of the Toad clan. Think of them like the master, except for the Toads. They're wise, powerful, and kind of like the guiding force for the clan. Levi nodded slowly, her expression clearing as understanding dawned. Okay, that makes sense. But why do they want to meet me? Her blonde companion sent her a wry smile, his eyes twinkling with amusement. Turns out you're a bit of a genius when it comes to seals, and I'm not saying this to just wind up your skirt. They said you're one of the best they've ever seen. They want to chat with you about how to improve the sealing arts as a whole. Levi's eyes widened in surprise, her cheeks flushing slightly. They said that about me. Really? She looked away nervously, her fingers fidgeting in her lap. I don't think I'm all that special. I don't know if I'll be able to live up to their standards. That's pretty crazy to think about. Naruto nudged her shoulder gently, interrupting her soft rambling. Hey, you've already demonstrated you're a genius with seals and runes. I have proof right here. He lifted his hand, showing off the ring on his finger. If you're worried about whether or not you're good enough, just remember you've already shown it. When we finally get a chance to introduce you to them, just be your usual, awesome self, and everything will be fine. I promise, Dadabayo. Levi giggled at Naruto's speech quirk sneaking into his assurances. Still, his confidence in her warmed her heart, and she felt a little of her nervousness melt away. Well, thank you, she said softly. I'll do my best. Whenever it happens. I know you will, Naruto replied with a perky grin. He then tapped on his ring curiously, his expression turning thoughtful. By the way, what on earth did you make this out of? I had a nasty fight before coming here with someone who used fire magic. Everything I was wearing was incinerated, except for this. Levi took a moment to process the question, her mouth pulling into a sly grin. My, Naruto, she teased, her eyes sparkling with mischief. I didn't know you liked fighting in the buff. The teen snorted, his expression highly unamused. This was absolutely not by choice. Trust me on that. Giggling, Levi let the teasing go and held her hand out for the ring. Naruto dropped it into her palm and she turned it over carefully, her fingers tracing the intricate details. He doesn't know it, she began, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, but I actually had Gadget make these for me. Naruto's eyes widened in surprise. Gadget? Really? Levi nodded, her grin widening. It's hard enough to get him to do anything, so I just asked him to make a pair of very hard and durable rings for a future project I was planning. He may be an Iron Dragon Slayer, but he can create alloys with his magic. This is a tungsten ring, the most durable metal we have available, and it's reinforced by his magic. Not even lava could melt these rings. Naruto took the ring back, holding it up to the light as he marveled at it. Wow, that's incredible. You really thought of everything. Levi poked Naruto's cheek playfully, her expression mock stern. I just know how prone you are to getting into trouble. Honestly, you're as bad as Natsu. I just thought, what do I need to prepare for? And that was one such situation. Naruto smirked, his cheek squished under her finger. Well, good thinking. Thank you. And thank you too, Gajiel. Cheeky bitch, came the gruff, mumbled reply from the grounded dragon slayer. Both Naruto and Levi jumped, startled by the unexpected interruption. Levi's face flushed bright red as she realized exactly what part of their conversation Gajiel might have overheard. Gee Gajiel. She stammered, her voice rising an octave in panic. How long have you been awake? Gajiel grunted, trying to roll over onto his side. Long enough to hear that you pranked me into making these two lovebirds a pair of rings, he muttered, his voice thick with sleep and irritation. You're lucky I'm too sore right now, otherwise you'd be hanging from a tree by your ankles. Letting out a big sigh of relief, Levi patted his head gently, her tone soothing. Yes, I know you would. Now go back to sleep. You need your rest. Gajiel grumbled dismissively but didn't argue further. He rolled his head back onto the pillow, his breathing evening out as he drifted off again. Wiping her brow thankfully, Levi let her nerves settle after the near miss. She glanced over at Naruto, only to find him wearing a most delightfully smug smile, his blue eyes glinting with mischief. Levi pouted heavily, her cheeks puffing out as she huffed, not a word. Naruto's grin didn't falter. I don't know what you're talking about, he said innocently, the teasing lilt in his tone unmistakable. Refusing to be baited, Levi turned her attention to the darkening sky. Thick heavy clouds rolled in like an advancing army, blotting out the fading sunlight. The distant rumble of thunder echoed ominously, warning of an approaching tropical front. A crisp salty breeze swept through the camp, carrying with it the faint scent of rain. Lysana shivered, her arms wrapping around herself as she reached for one of the spare blankets. She snuggled up against Elfman for warmth, her eyes scanning the horizon warily. This really isn't how we hoped our tests would go, she muttered sullenly, her voice barely audible over the growing wind. Her gaze roamed over the resting mages, a grimace pulling at her lips as Elfman held her close. Stupid Grimwarheart. Would they have to pick today of all days to attack? Though it was a very relevant question, no one had an answer for the timing. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the rustling of the wind through the tree leaves. After a few moments, Mirajane softly spoke up from her spot on the ground, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. Naruto, can you tell us what's happening on the island and how everyone is? Can you do that with your sage mode? If you can, I know it'll help calm all our nerves. All eyes turned to Naruto, their expressions a mix of hope and anxiety. He smiled reassuringly and nodded. Yeah, that shouldn't be a problem. Let's see what's happening. Leaning back, he closed his eyes and let the incredible energy around them all snap through his system. Immediately, Senjutsu activated and the island unfolded before his mind's eye like a living map. Frowning as he sifted through the deluge of information, Naruto chewed on his lip before replying, it's pretty crazy out there right now. Pretty much everyone is fighting someone. Let's see who's closest. Raising an eyebrow as he mentally scanned the area, he began listing off the fights. Lucy, Lo, Gray, and Kana seem to be fighting together. They're up against the big goat guy from Brimware. Big goat guy? Levi asked curiously, her head tilting to the side. Naruto nodded, his focus still on their energy signatures. Yeah, he's a big goat person hybrid. Never cared to remember his name. I think they're doing okay, though. It seems like it, at least. He moved on. Juvius seems to be up against Merity. He chuckled, a low, amused sound. That poor girl won't know what hit her. She's a pink-haired mage, a little older than Wendy. Uses some sort of magic that links emotions, so that'll be an interesting fight since Juvia has a lot of feelings, he added for the group's benefit. That's probably a lost magic, like most of them seem to use, murmured Levi, her fingers absently tracing patterns in the sand. They don't have any qualms about dabbling in things that shouldn't be touched. What else can you see? Urza. Where is she? Naruto frowned, then smirked as he spotted her near the Tenru tree. Ha, she's up against Azuma. He opened his eyes and cast his gaze over Panther Lily and Mirajane. She'll absolutely destroy him. I know that hit I nailed him with hurt. And Natsu? Inquired Lysana, her voice tinged with worry. Do you know where he is? Closing his eyes again, Naruto reached out to find him. Natsu. He's currently chasing someone. Ultear. Hearing the name, Mirajane's eyes snapped up, a fiery anger burning in them. Ultear. Where is she? She pushed herself into a sitting position, ignoring the worried protests of her siblings. Immediately understanding what she wanted, Naruto shot back, Mirajane, you're not in any state to fight her. I'm sorry to say it, but you'll get your arse kicked. Growling, Mirajane was undaunted. You don't know about my magic, she said, her voice firm. When I use takeover, I receive a boost of health from my summon. She smiled darkly, her eyes glinting with determination. I might be tired, but the second I use Satan's soul, I'll be more than ready to go. Elfman, by this point, had grabbed his sister's shoulders and was trying to guide her back into the makeshift bed. Come on, sister, you know the kickback from that will knock you around even more. Be reasonable, that's the most manly way. Brushing his hands off her, Mirajane stood firm, her silver hair catching the dim light as it cascaded over her shoulders. Naruto, either you take me there, or I'll find her myself. I have a bone to pick with her and I'll have my say about it, whether you're there to see it or not. The blonde looked at the Strauss siblings questioningly, silently asking for their help. Elfman was still panicking slightly, but Lysana simply looked resigned to the outcome. Brother, you know when she gets like this, nothing you or I can say will change her mind. She turned to Naruto, her eyes pleading. Take her. If you're there, at least we know she'll be safe when she collapses from exhaustion. I'll be safe. Mirajane turned a questioning eye upon her sister. I mean, I know you'll be safe during the fight. Lysana backpedaled quickly, holding up her hands. It's after, once you've won and you're spent, if Naruto can bring you back, it'll ease our worry. She looked back at Naruto. So, please. For us. He didn't want to, but the stubborn glint in Mirajane's eye told him everything he needed to know. Sighing, he scratched his head and slowly pushed himself to his feet. Alright, fine, I will. But, he shot his girlfriend a firm look, if I think you're getting too tired, I will step in. Deal. Mirajane snorted confidently. Sure, if that's what it'll take. You won't get the chance, though. Rolling his eyes, Naruto held out his arms, and Mirajane hopped into them with practiced ease. Looking down at the group, the blonde smiled and stepped back. Well, if that's the case, we'll make our way out. Stay safe, you lot. We won't be too long. XXXXXXX. Flying towards Natsu's rapidly moving energy, the duo soared through the darkening sky in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. The wind whipped around them, the first drops of rain finally reaching them, and the rumble of thunder sounding much closer. Mirajane clung tightly to Naruto, her silver hair streaming behind her like a banner as she steeled herself for the battle to come. She was ready to do whatever it took to beat repentance into Ultear. Naruto, however, felt a growing unease gnawing at his core. The energy signatures they were tracking were moving towards a strange void on the island, a place he hadn't noticed before. The magic covering Tenru was so dense and chaotic that the teen hadn't noticed it, but now, as they drew closer, it stood out like a black hole amidst the vibrant energy of the island. It made the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end, Kyuubi's warning from earlier echoing in his mind. There's a void of energy on this island. Tread carefully. The Nine-Tails voice had been uncharacteristically serious, and Naruto couldn't shake the feeling that whatever lay ahead posed quite a bit of danger. Still, he pressed on. Mirajane would chew him out if he suddenly changed course, and whatever that void was, it didn't seem to be acting aggressively. I'll just have to watch my steps, Naruto thought, trying to reassure himself. Don't want to ruffle Kyuubi's fur too much. A low, rumbling growl from the depths of his mind answered that thought, the sound reverberating through his consciousness like the distant thunder. As they flew, Mirajane suddenly squeezed his neck, her grip tightening as she peered down into the thick foliage below. The trees swayed in the wind, their leaves rustling like whispers in the dark. I'm starting to feel her, Naruto, she said, her voice low but steady. Put us down here. We can track her on foot. Naruto nodded, his sharp eyes scanning the forest below for a safe landing spot. The dense canopy made it difficult to see, but he spotted a small clearing and descended smoothly, his feet touching the ground with barely a sound. Mirajane slid out of his arms, her movements graceful despite her exhaustion. She stood tall, her eyes scanning the shadows with a fierce determination. The forest around them was eerily quiet, the usual sounds of wildlife absent. Even the wind seemed to die down as they stepped forward, the air tinged with an oppressive energy Naruto struggled to place, even in senjutsu. It was so faint that a quick glance at Mirajane confirmed she couldn't detect it at all. If she can't feel it, then it's not a threat. I'll stick close anyway, just in case. Come on, this way. Oblivious to the internal conversation her boyfriend was having, Mirajane pushed forward, eyes zeroing in on her target. She dashed into the undergrowth, and Naruto easily drew up alongside her. The pair moved quickly, Naruto letting Mira take head and guide them as she thought best. Natsu's energy before them was rapidly approaching from their left, and Mira pushed to intersect him. Bursting from the bushes, the dragon slayer let out a startled yelp, and ran face first into a tree, as he tried to dodge them. The tree rattled from the impact, sticks, leaves and bugs falling to the forest floor, as Natsu slumped down the trunk. Pulling his face from the bark, he rubbed his forehead and glared at them accusingly. Mira. Naruto. Where the hell did you two come from? Why didn't I smell you before now? Happy circled above, calling out helpfully, I know what they were doing. I know Natsu. They were hiding because they were doing naughty stuff. Happy then burst into song, giggling all the way through, Naruto and Mira sitting in a tree, KISIN. The irritating cat was cut off as he had to dodge the rock Naruto lobbed at him, laughing openly the whole time. Mira ignored the grumbled, "Stupid cat," from Naruto as she knelt beside Natsu. "We were chasing Ultear, one of the Grimmer Heart mages. You were actually following her now." She looked off to the side as she felt Ultear's energy slow down. At least this meant it would be easier to catch up. Natsu kept rubbing his head even as he pushed himself to his feet. "Ultear. Who's that? I'm following the smell of someone I feel like I farted ages ago." Mirajane looked up at Naruto, who only shrugged. Standing up as well, Mira shook her head. "I'm not sure what that is, but I do know that I have business with her. Would you let me take this fight on?" Naruto screwed his eyes up defiantly, snarling, "Not a chance. This is my prey. I smelled them first." The air around Mira darkened dramatically, and a dangerously challenging smile crossed her face. "Please. For me." Instantly cowering before the S-rank mage, Naruto swallowed nervously and nodded rapidly. "Yeah, I mean if you want this guy that bad, by all means." Chuckling, Naruto stood back and watched Mira easily intimidate the younger mage. "I wonder if I'll ever have that sort of presence," he thought to himself. Makarov's hurt. Eyes immediately whitening, Naruto stood up straight and looked around. "What? Who said that?" Mira and Natsu looked over at the abrupt statement, Mira in surprise and Natsu in suspicion. "Said what, Naruto?" Blinking in confusion, Naruto scratched his head and looked at the ground in confusion. "I swear I just heard someone say." Makarov's hurt. Jumping into a stance, Naruto looked around wearily, the voice definitely not missed that time. "Naruto. What's going on?" Mira held her hands to her chest, Naruto's sporadic movements concerning her. "What did you hear?" Naruto frowned, looking about him for any threats. A voice. "I don't know where it came from. It said the master is hurt." "What?" Both mages opposite him gasped in shock. Natsu's hands absently starting to smolder protectively. "I really can't explain it," answered the blonde. "It was just in my ear, like someone was whispering to me." He suddenly stiffened again before growling. "I have no idea what's happening, but I just got directions to where the master apparently is." Still mostly focused on Ultear, Mira chewed her lip worriedly as she considered this strange and very abrupt revelation. "How sure are you that this is real?" Naruto shrugged and then winced in irritation as the voice rattled off the directions again. "I don't know why you guys aren't hearing this as well, but I know I'm hearing what I'm hearing." Frowning in thought, Mira asked, "How far away from here is it?" Straightening, Naruto looked around for a moment before pointing towards a large tree branch that was sticking up into the air several hundred meters away from them. Towards that apparently. On the other side of it. Turning to look at a stumped Natsu, Mira clicked her fingers in front of his face to try and catch his attention. "Natsu, can you please go and check on this? If master really is hurt, he will need help." Growling, the teen was torn between continuing his chase and running to make sure his guildmaster was okay. "How sure of this are you? You're not just going mad?" Grumbling, Naruto pushed a hand to his head in discomfort as the directions rattled off a third time. "As sure as I can be. I can't go because I promised Lisana and Elfman that I'd watch over Mirajane. If nothing's there, just come back and meet us at that smell you were chasing." Frowning worriedly, Natsu looked at the floor before turning his eyes to Happy above. "What do you think, buddy?" Happy was frowning, the small blue cat looking over to the tree. "Naruto is being weird. Like, weirder than usual. A weird. I don't want master to be hurt, and I want to make sure he's okay." "That settles it then." Natsu slammed a fist into his palm, and a small explosion of fire puffed out. "We will go check things out. If master isn't there though, I'm coming back to kick your ass first, then that other guy's." Mirajane rolled her eyes and made a shooing motion at the fire mage. Yes, of course. Now, can you please go and check it out for us?" Grinning widely, Natsu just gave the girl a thumbs up and turned on his toes. "I'll be back soon. See yas." He and Happy then disappeared into the trees, the pair watching as their noise and movement faded into the distance. "Are you sure that's right, Naruto?" Naruto frowned in confusion, even as a faded thank you drifted into his thoughts. "I don't know what's going on, but something definitely told me where Makarov is." This concerned Mira, but for whatever reason she felt at peace with it. "Well, let's just trust it for now. If anything else happens though, tell me immediately." Humming softly in agreement, Naruto just bit his lip and motioned for the girl to continue her chase. Giving him one more glaze to confirm he was alright, Mirajane turned and began dashing after Ultear once more, Naruto close behind every step of the way. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe and comment down below and turn on the bell notification. And also check out other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.